What up, guys? It's your girl T, aka the nappy-headed jojoba, and if you are new to my channel, welcome. I reckon there's a solid chance you are new to my channel and perhaps you stumbled upon this video through a search. This is my review of the Gauge Girl Training 6-week shred, the paleo version. I'm reviewing this because I completed the program yesterday. Yesterday was my final day, thank the Lord. And prior to purchasing this program, I went to look for reviews for it and there weren't any. Not one. At least not here on YouTube or anywhere of value. I couldn't really find any comprehensive reviews from someone who had completed the program, so I feel like someone has to do it, and it may as well be me. Throughout the 6 weeks of the program, I took notes on pros, cons, miscellaneous thoughts. So we're just going to go through that. And I'm also going to give you guys my stats in terms of weight and inches lost and things of that nature. Also, you'll notice the light changing throughout this video. I'm shooting with natural daylight and it's a very overcast day today, so sorry in advance. Let's start off with some of the basics. Now, Gauge Girl Training, she has a YouTube channel, but basically it's an online coaching and meal planning service. They'll do custom programs, but they also have a series of 6-week shred programs where you basically just follow what they tell you to eat over the course of 6 weeks, and hopefully it will yield you some good results. They've got a winter shred, I think, a summer shred, a regular shred, a shred for men, a paleo shred, which is the one that I did. There may be some others, I'm not entirely sure. Now, if you go to gagegirltraining.com and you go to their page with the 6-week shreds and you actually click on purchase, you'll see that the purchase price is $149.99. As someone who has purchased and completed the program, my response to that sticker price is, are you fucking high? Quite frankly, there are books and things out there that provide a lot more information than you get in this PDF, because that's all you get. You get a PDF with the meal plan, and they are far more reasonably priced than $150. However, I sincerely doubt that anyone has ever paid that full price of $150. I mean, I certainly hope not, because they're running specials for these shred programs on Groupon pretty much at all times. There's one going on right now, I'm sure, and I'll link it in the description box if I can find it. So I would reckon that it's sort of like when you're shopping on, you know, Chic Wish or Shein or one of those sites where they're just like, the real price is this, but we're giving you this sale price of that, and you realize like no one in the history of man ever paid the full price. I think it's sort of that type of thing. So I did what most people do, and I bought the Groupon. If you get it through Groupon, it's around $50 for the 6-week PDF program. You buy it through Groupon, they give you a redemption code, and then you go over to Gauge Girl, and then you're able to put that code in, and it takes it off of the price of the program when you are checking out. It's pretty straightforward. I was actually lucky enough to buy mine when Groupon was running an additional coupon, so I was able to save almost another $10, making my program about $40 in the end. Once it was down to $40 from $150, I felt that that was a lot more reasonable, so I went ahead and took the plunge. Now, I bought the program back in May. It took me quite a while to get around to doing it. I started the program 6 weeks ago because I just finished yesterday. It was the final day, and it just took me a long time to kind of like get my shit together to actually go ahead and do the program. I'm gonna start off with the pros because, you know, yay positivity, but also mainly because I have like more cons than pros. The main pro of purchasing a program like this, or this specific program, is that the macros are already worked out for you. That was the main reason I got this program at all, because, you know, I think we all want to be as healthy and as fit as we can, and occasionally in those pursuits we can hit a wall. We might plateau, we might not be sure exactly which way we want to go, and manipulating your macros is one of the most efficient and practical ways to reach your goals with your health, fitness, and nutrition. There's a reason that bodybuilders and fitness competitors and pro athletes, they're all very dialed in with exactly how much protein they're eating, exactly how many grams of carbs, exactly how much fat. Some people are able to reach their goals simply by eating intuitively, some are not. I am not. So this program was really great for me because it allowed me to do an entirely dialed in macros-based approach without actually having to crunch the numbers myself and figure out the meals. Another pro was knowing that having all of my meals planned out literally for the next month and a half It made it a lot easier for me to free my mind up to not think about what I was going to have for lunch, what I was going to have for dinner. I tend to become kind of preoccupied with like what I'm going to eat sometimes, so not having that concern allowed me to focus on other things, and I think it actually like helped me to be more efficient at work, more creative, and just kind of have a lot more mental power for other things. It sounds really silly, but usually the first thing I'm thinking of on my way to work is like, what am I going to eat for lunch? And then after lunch, I'm immediately thinking, what am I going to eat for dinner? It's predetermined. They're telling you what you're eating for the next 6 weeks, so you may as well not even worry about it. Just make sure your meal prep is taken care of and then use that energy for something else. The next pro is that the meals are varied enough, but I would say it still verges on being very repetitive, which I'll talk about more in the cons, but I do think that there's enough variety over the course of the 6 weeks to actually give you solid ideas and a solid foundation for how you can continue eating after the program is done, maybe eliminating foods that you didn't care for or foods that you can no longer eat because you can't stand the sight of them after eating them way too many times over the course of the program. But in any event, I think it really does lay a good groundwork for a sustainable way to eat within a sort of macros-based lifestyle so that you can cherry pick what you like and leave behind what you don't and still feel like you're not eating the same thing day in, day out. That leads me to my next pro, which is it really did give me ideas that I can adapt and use now that I'm out of the program. In fact, today is my first day of freedom, and you'd think the first thing I'd do is go to Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles. But really, all I had for breakfast was a acai berry bowl thing. Like, it's actually one of the recipes from the program. She calls it a bowl. It's really a smoothie. But it was really, really good, and I want to continue feeling good, so the thought of going and just undoing all of that work I did is not super palatable to me right now. Despite any redundancies, which again I'll get to in the cons section, I do think that there are a lot of really good ideas in there for meals that you can make after the program's done, and that's kind of what I'm going to be doing, merging it in with things I like to make. Like I love to make roasts and roasted chicken or make chili, things like that. So I'll be doing some of the healthy recipes that I already loved and knew before this program, and then mixing in some of the really quick and easy meal ideas that I learned to do on this program. Another pro is that this program helped me to appreciate hot sauce. Hot sauce, it's low or no calorie generally. You do want to find ones that do not contain sugar. A lot of them do. But because you're eating potentially bland food pretty frequently, I developed a newfound appreciation for hot sauce. I don't think I have been much of a hot sauce user in my life prior to this. I've certainly never finished a bottle, but I finished about 2 bottles of hot sauce in the course of the 6 weeks of this program. So I guess the pro is that, the hot sauce industry has a new customer. Another pro is some of the recipes in the book. Most of them, not so much, but there's 2 really great ones. She's got a great recipe for fish tacos in there that I love. It's absolutely going to be a staple in my life after this program. For whatever reason, it only comes up in the program the once, but I remember that day being a very good day because I was not angry about what I was eating. It was actually super delicious, and I also really love the acai berry bowl thing that I mentioned that I had again for breakfast this morning, because that's legit good and delicious and something that I will absolutely be incorporating into my food routines going forward. Last is that it really got me in the habit of cooking all of my own meals. I have not eaten a meal at a restaurant the entire time except for 1 meal. So that was really good because I've been wanting to challenge myself to go an entire month without eating out at restaurants at all, and I just never got my act together to actually do it. And this forced me to do it for the duration of the program. I was cooking all of my own meals because you have to know exactly what's going into all of your food, how much fat, how much protein, you need to weigh everything. I would not say that it really helped me to save money necessarily. In fact, I felt like the program was quite expensive, particularly some weeks were worse than others in terms of the ingredients needs. But as you go along, you figure out ways to cut costs and so forth. So that's something that I can't really describe to you. That's something that just comes with experience week by week of doing the program. But I can talk about that a little bit more in the cons, which I'll get to shortly. The final pro would be my actual results. Over the course of the 6 weeks, I've lost a total of 15 pounds. That sounds really good because that is, of course, more than 2 pounds per week, but I'm not that pumped about it because my concern is that I've actually lost some lean mass. I think it is pretty much impossible for me to have lost only pounds of fat in that duration of time. So I'm actually like not super thrilled. I'm a little bit concerned that I lost some of my lean mass in there because of the calorie counts being lower than my personal needs. But I will just run through the inches I lost as well. I've got them here on my progress sheet. I lost 2 inches off my waist. I lost 2.5 inches off my hips. I think the chest was about the same. I couldn't quite remember like if I was measuring in the same spot on my chest, so I honestly don't know. But I think I'm about the same in the chest. I lost 1/2 inch on my right arm. I lost 1/2 inch on my left arm. I lost 2 inches on my right thigh, 2 inches on my left thigh. And then I just lost like fractions of an inch on both calves. Now the video you're seeing is actually the before and after, where the before is technically my after from the September shred. So that's what I was looking like at the beginning of October. But there was about a week from that video to when I actually started this 6-week shred program, if that makes sense. And I did try to wear the same outfit just so that it would be more of an apples to apples comparison. But that's more or less what my starting point was. It was just like about a week before I actually started this. These photos are more accurate to what my day 1 versus day 42 results were like. Yesterday was the last day and I took these pictures this morning before I'd had even a morsel of food. So I'm a little bit alarmed at the number of pounds I lost in a relatively short time. I am much, 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 much happier with how I look overall and how I feel. The weight gain that came with adopting my dog and some other life changes I went through toward the end of last year, I really didn't even realize how much I hadn't been feeling like myself. And now that I am feeling like myself again, I'm so grateful. I think I'm nearly back at the fitness level and shape I was in at the end of August last year, August 2016. So now the goal is to just go into phase 3 and get to my final goal where I'm actually maintaining. So I've got a few more pounds of fat that I would like to lose to do that. But yeah, for now, I'm already feeling so much better, so much more comfortable. My posture is better. I feel like my sleep is better. My performance in the gym is actually worse at the moment, which I'll get to in a moment. But overall, I just feel so much happier and more comfortable in my own skin. And that to me is the biggest pro of all. It's time for the cons, so buckle up, buckaroos. Now look, as I mentioned, I have the paleo version of the program. My first con is that this program is not paleo. One of the day's menus, for example, includes maple chicken sausage from Trader Joe's. That shit ain't paleo. If you look at the ingredients, sugar is listed not once, but twice. It's got regular cane sugar, I believe, and then it's also got brown sugar. And by the way, if you're unfamiliar, brown sugar is no more healthful than regular sugar. Brown sugar is sugar with molasses. That's all it is. And by any measure, sugar is not paleo. I haven't the foggiest idea why that was included in this program, and that's not the only instance where something that isn't paleo is included in the program. There's a recipe for jerk chicken, and I believe she suggests sprinkling brown sugar on it at one of the steps. I mean, she offers the alternative of coconut sugar. Whether coconut sugar is paleo is also kind of a gray area. It's very debatable. It's one of those things like oats where some people think it's okay and some don't. But if you're making a program that's meant to be paleo, wouldn't you make sure that everything is not up for debate? Leave no doubt. So I didn't understand that at all. And I feel like that's something that needs to be known, is that the program is not 100% paleo. Another con is that the menus and calorie counts are one size fits all. The amount of food you're eating over weeks 1 and 2, and then 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 step down in those increments every 2 weeks, basically. So over weeks 1 and 2, you're eating, I believe it was around 1,550 calories. Then over weeks 3 and 4, I believe it's 14 something. And then over weeks 5 and 6, you're eating around 1,260 something calories, something in that neighborhood. So if your calorie needs are more than that or less than that, you kind of fuck now, ain't you? For me, I happen to know that my resting metabolic rate is over 1,450 calories. I've had it tested. I went and breathed into a tube and I've had it measured. I've also had my body scanned with a DEXA scan where they actually calculate how much lean mass you have, and from that, how much muscle you have, you're able to determine what your RMR is. And your RMR is like, that's how much food I need if I stay in bed all day. So the fact that I need over 1,400 calories, close to 1,500 just to stay in bed, that doesn't even factor in additional calories I need just for my daily activity, working, walking my dog, working out. Because of that, this wound up being a bit of a glorified crash diet for me, which is why I'm not like over the moon about this 15-pound weight loss, because I'm kind of like, well, that's not really a healthy rate of weight loss for me, because I already know that this wasn't enough food for me. So I didn't know that this was going to be that way, which is partly why I'm doing this review, so that other people considering can have this information that I didn't have the benefit of having. In any event, after I purchased the program and saw that, I was going to be eating like a lot less calories than I probably needed for at least a month, particularly in weeks 3 through 6, I contacted Gauge Girl Training to ask if they had any suggestions for someone in my situation. It's just like, I purchased your program. I feel like these aren't going to be enough calories for me because I actually know my RMR within pretty good accuracy because I breathed into the tube, I did the whole thing, yada, yada, yada. And her response was to tell me to buy a custom plan. In that same email where I inquired about kind of modifying the calorie amounts to my needs, I had also asked her about some of the ways the menus are actually set up. For example, each day's menu lists a post-workout, and in a lot of cases it lists a pre-workout, meaning, something you drink or eat pre-workout and then something you have after your workout. This is listed on every single day of the program. So my other question was, is the intention for us to work out every single day for 7 weeks? Like, this is not made clear in the literature contained in the PDF of the 6-week shred. That question was ignored entirely. The only response I got initially was, you should have bought a custom program. So then I followed up like, okay, thanks for letting me know that I should have bought a custom program. I'm not going to do that at this time. Can you at least let me know about whether I should be working out every single day because I see a post-workout is listed for every single day? Or if I'm not working out, do I omit that? Will that mess up my macro count for the day? Because if your post-workout contains 30 grams of protein and you don't have that because you didn't work out, your entire macro count for the day is going to be off. So I just wanted clarification on that. Reiterating that question, no response for a couple weeks. So then I followed up and finally got a response saying, no, this program is meant for you to work out 5 days a week, but we recommend that you still include the post-workout because you're going to need that protein to hit your macros. So that is a con. I feel that if you purchase one of these so-called DIY shred programs from Gauge Girl, the support isn't really there for you. I believe they have a Facebook group or something, but I'm not on Facebook, never have been, never will be. And that shouldn't be a requirement to get support. You should be able to contact the company from which you purchased the program and get your questions answered, in my opinion. Especially if you're paying $150 like they're suggesting it is worth. The next con is that some of these meals are straight up unpleasant. There is a massive amount of repetition. I don't think I'll ever be able to even look at beef jerky or cauliflower rice ever again. There are at least 2 instances in the program where you're eating some sort of cauliflower rice dish for 5 meals in a row, like breakfast, lunch, dinner, breakfast, lunch the next day. It's out of control. And to be honest, the number of times that I want to eat cauliflower rice for breakfast is 0. There's actually one instance where you're meant to make like overnight cauliflower rice. I think this is supposed to be some sort of paleo spin on overnight oats, except it's fucking cauliflower, which makes no goddamn sense. And it was straight up offensive. When I actually went to eat it, I was offended. There are a few things in there where I'm like, did anyone actually taste this before you put it in this program? Because it's outrageous. But generally speaking, the meals are mediocre. Some of them are actually pretty good, like the fish tacos I mentioned. And then there's some where I'm seriously just like, how dare you? The next con is that the program is organized poorly. I feel like it leaves a lot of potential to waste food, and even though each week has its own grocery lists, they're not very helpful. They built the program so they know how much you need for the week. They know how many times you're going to be eating ground turkey or kale or whatever. So if they know, okay, you're going to need this much ground turkey over the course of the week, I don't know why they wouldn't just put that on the grocery list, and then you can say, okay, I still got this much left over from last week, so I need to buy this much. Instead, they just give you a blank grocery list where you're meant to do all the calculations yourself, I guess. And that was something I wound up having to do every week, so I didn't end up buying too much of something or not enough of something. I had to literally go through the 7 days of the week and like keep tallies. Okay, we're having chicken again here, so I'm gonna need that much. Okay, so that's 4 ounces on these separate occasions, which adds up to a pound and a half total that I need for the week. Like, all of that work should be done for you because they've already written the program. Like, they know over the course of the week how much you need of anything. So I don't know why that's not included in the grocery list and why you're meant to do it for yourself. Ultimately, it leaves a lot of the potential to waste food, and that's true even with the recipes, because there's probably maybe a half dozen or so recipes in there that you end up using at various times in the 6-week shred. But the amount that you make for the recipe batch doesn't really correlate to how much you need in the program. For example, with that acai breakfast bowl, the reason I actually had that for breakfast this morning was not just because it tastes good, but the way the recipe is written, it actually makes 4 servings. Do you know how many times you actually eat that during the course of the 6 weeks? Once. I suppose if you're doing this program with someone, that might be fine, but odds are you aren't. So I don't know why the recipe wouldn't be written to correlate to how much you actually need to use. Similarly, there are these berry breakfast bars that were complete trash. I would say these are almost as offensive as that overnight cauliflower rice, but not quite. Those are something that come up in week 1, and you make a whole pan of them. You know, it's like a breakfast bake bar, or whatever the fuck. Do you know how much of those you actually use during the program? I'd say about a quarter of that entire pan. What are you supposed to do with the rest of those? Again, I guess if you are doing the program with someone, you can share it or maybe give it to the rest of your family, but those things are so disgusting, I wouldn't give them to my worst enemy. Also, in terms of poor organization, as you're in the PDF and you're looking at the menu that contains these breakfast bars, there's a link, like it's a hyperlink, it's blue and it's underlined so you can click it, and you'd think that would take you to the recipe for them. But what it takes you to is a blog post of a different version that isn't paleo. Again, this is the paleo shred, so why isn't it linking to the page that's later in the PDF that actually has the recipe, which is what it should do? Instead, it's kicking me out to an external site for a recipe that's using like oats, because at first I didn't realize what was going on. I was like, wait, why are there oats in this program? That's not paleo. And then I realized that it's linking to the incorrect recipe. I think if you're selling people something that you're saying is worth $150, you should probably have your I's dotted and T's crossed a little bit better than that. Sticking with the lack of organization, the amount of prep work you need just to actually figure out a real grocery list, because the grocery lists provided aren't really cutting it. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to have to go through. It takes time. It would take me on average at least half an hour just to go through the week's menus to figure out what my real grocery list was each time. And then you would have to figure out exactly what you can batch cook and what you would have to kind of make to order throughout the week and so forth, because it doesn't really tell you. There should be a place, perhaps with the grocery lists, where it's like, here's what you need to buy, here's how much, here's what you can batch cook and just use throughout the week, and here's what you're just going to have to make as you go along. I feel like that kind of information it would have been so much easier for them to do for you rather than you having to figure it out as you go along. And it's also the kind of thing that they should do, because again, this is a fairly expensive program in my opinion. The next con is that the program is also really inconsistent with describing the amounts of foods that you are supposed to be eating with each meal. For one, you definitely need a food scale to do this program, because you're going to need to weigh things in ounces and often in grams. I'm not really clear on why some things are in grams versus others in ounces. I don't get it at all. I don't understand that inconsistency. And it will often be with the exact same food. For example, there's one day where it tells you 5 ounces of sweet potato, and then the next day it says 90 grams of sweet potato. It's not a huge deal. Like most food scales, you can toggle back and forth very easily, but I just don't understand that inconsistency. What does bother me is when you aren't given weights and you're given cup measurements instead, because weighing is always far more accurate than a cup measurement for any sort of produce or really anything at all. Professional chefs, bakers, they always go by weight. It's never really by cups. So I really think that this program would benefit greatly from, instead of saying 1 cup of arugula and 90 grams of sweet potato, just put everything in grams or everything in ounces, or at least everything in weights, grams, ounces, whatever, rather than having people kind of guess whether it's supposed to be a packed cup of greens or a loose, like, who knows? But across the board, definitely make sure you have a food scale if you're going to do this program, because you will need it. There are times where she'll attempt to do both. She'll say 98 grams of Brussels sprouts or 5. Problem with that is, unless your Brussels sprouts are the size of tennis balls, that's not going to be 98 grams. That's probably going to be anywhere from like 9 to 10 more Brussels sprouts than the amount indicated in the estimate. Consistently, just the number of sprouts or whatever it was that she was giving you, asparagus spears to the weight, not even close. So I would say if you do go through with getting this program, go ahead and weigh everything whenever the weights are given, and never rely on counting, because it is never even close. At least it wasn't for me. The next con is that this program is expensive. The groceries are expensive. I feel like I already know how to grocery shop and eat healthfully and eat a paleo-based diet for a reasonable budget each week, but I found that this program was quite expensive to follow, due in no small part because of the use of collagen peptides. Collagen peptides are one of the only approved protein powders on a paleo lifestyle. They're not actually a complete protein, but this program relies on them heavily. You're using at least 30 grams of them, which is more than what is considered a serving on the label. So you will be burning through collagen peptides a lot on this program. I must have gone through a good 4 jars in 6 weeks, and collagen peptides are expensive. So it really adds up, and that is definitely something to keep in mind. Also, even with all of the batch cooking that you can do, there's still quite a bit of cooking that you're going to have to do throughout the week. It's not really a type of program where you would be able to batch cook everything for, say, 4 days on Sunday and then maybe just do a little bit more cooking midweek. You pretty much are going to have to do some cooking every single day, almost. In fact, you might even have to make a second trip to the grocery store midweek, because I found that would happen with me. You know, if midweek you're switching to a new protein, that's something that I would prefer not to buy on Sunday if I'm not going to be cooking it until Wednesday or Thursday. I'd rather get it fresh on Wednesday or Thursday. So that was kind of a bummer. Like, I really despise going to the grocery store. So having to go to the grocery store at least twice a week, pretty much every week, was not for me. In the back of the program, there is a substitution grid where you can swap out your carb, your protein, or your fat. I found that while it is a nice idea, it is tricky to understand, and there is a bit of a trickle-down problem with that whole setup. Because if you are swapping out your beef jerky for, say, deli turkey, which was something that I had to do by week 2 because I couldn't even look at beef jerky anymore. Lucky for me, deli turkey is bland enough that it's almost impossible to get sick of it. It's just like, yeah, all right, fine. Turkey, it tastes like the color that it is. I digress. But once you swap out your protein, like let's say, okay, I'm supposed to have beef jerky now, and I'm supposed to have this much, which gives me 15 grams of protein. I don't want beef jerky ever again in life, so let me go to this grid and find something else that has 15 grams of protein. Okay, but that other thing isn't necessarily going to have the same amount of carbs and fats. In fact, it almost definitely won't. So the more you do that throughout the day, the more you will be throwing off your macros overall and not hitting your targets. You feel what I'm saying? So it's kind of tricky. Like, you can substitute, but I feel like you can't substitute that much. Otherwise, it'll have a domino effect and throw off all of your macros a bit too wildly to hit your marks for the day. One big con for me was that the meals generally felt like a chore. So by the end of the day, I was usually happy to finish my last meal because it was just done. I was just relieved to be done with food for the day. When I finished my final meal on the program last night, I was so happy just to be done eating meals on this program. I was so excited to be able to make choices for myself that will actually taste good and still be in line with my lifestyle and my goals, because I don't feel like I want to run off to a pizzeria or anything. I just want to be able to pick my own meals and pick things that actually taste good, rather than something that someone, in a lab coat picked off of a chart without thinking about the person who would actually have to eat it. Speaking of these substitutions that I referred to a moment ago, beef jerky, I don't even know how many times it's in there as a snack, but it's way too many. But beef jerky and deli turkey are two sort of crutch foods, that and the fucking cauliflower, that just keep coming up because I suppose they're probably just very easy sources of protein when you're trying to keep calories low. The problem is both beef jerky and deli turkey are very high in sodium. I would say that if you're going to do this program, I would suggest being very mindful of that, because too much sodium is really bad for you. It causes a lot of bloating. What I ended up doing was doing deli turkey whenever either beef jerky or deli turkey was listed, but I would get the low sodium type. And with the amount you're eating, it still ends up being a lot of sodium because you're just eating so much of it, but at least you're getting less than you would if you went with the OG version. So that's just something I would suggest. I actually think it wasn't very thoughtful to have that much of those two high sodium foods in there that frequently. When you consider the amount of salt that you might be adding just to season your own food, and then, having that much beef jerky and deli turkey on a regular basis, it really is a lot of salt, and it made me nervous. I mean, that's why I switched to the low sodium very early on, because I was just getting concerned about the amount of salt that it was going to be putting into my body. Speaking of salt, it's never really explicitly stated as something that we are supposed to use or something that we are not supposed to use. There's one point where you're instructed to make an egg white omelet on the plan, and it lists salt as an optional add-in. In my house, salt is not optional for eggs. You need a little pinch. I mean, I watch my salt, I'm careful about it, but salt is not an optional add-in when I'm seasoning my food. But throughout the entire 6 weeks, I was concerned about whether I was actually supposed to be using salt or not. Because if it's saying specifically for this dish, use some salt if you want, and it's not saying it for anything else, is that implying that I'm not supposed to be using salt on all of these other dishes? Is that why there's so much beef jerky and deli turkey? Is that supposed to be our only source of salt for the entire 6 weeks? I don't know, it's unclear, and obviously based on my experience with customer service, I wasn't about to go back and ask. So I personally chose to use a very conservative amount of salt, as conservative as I could be, to actually kind of have my food be palatable. But that's one thing that I think should have been made more clear in the program literature. One thing, it's not really a con, it's just something that I thought I should mention, but sweet potatoes come up frequently in the program, not as much as cauliflower or zucchini or beef jerky, for the love of God. But one thing I wanted to mention is sweet potatoes are not yams. They're not the same thing. I used yams the entire time because I reckon that's probably what is intended. People refer to yams as sweet potatoes all the time, but they're a completely different plant. So that's just something I wanted to throw out there. Like, I don't know if maybe she did intend for you to use actual sweet potatoes, but I used yams the entire time. The last con is that I find that this program has the potential to promote an unhealthy relationship with food. If you're already predisposed to that, or if you already have an unhealthy relationship with food, I feel like this program or ones like it could very easily exacerbate that issue. It can lead you to obsessing over macros and calories and how often you're eating and this and that. And for me, I often found myself kind of slipping into a rabbit hole of obsessing my visual progress day to day, to the point where what I ended up doing was I actually turned around my full-length mirror in my bedroom so that I wouldn't be able to keep looking at myself and seeing if I looked different from day to day. And I would just keep my head down, keep going, stay the course, and then later on we'll see how things are looking. Because I do tend to sometimes get a little bit obsessive when I'm in a program like that, tracking my progress and seeing if I look any different. And I definitely made sure not to weigh myself until the very end. I weighed myself at the beginning and at the end, but for the most part, I really was just trying to focus on getting through it and not weighing myself daily and obsessing over 1 pound up, 1 pound down. So that rounds up the cons, of which I'm sure you noticed there were many. Moving into miscellaneous things to consider. The program does contain a lot of almonds. Almonds are a frequent snack. They come up a lot. So that's just something to consider for people with allergies. But almonds do come up frequently, and that's fine for me. But if you are allergic, it's something that you should know. There's also a fair amount of smoothies and, kind of like post-workout shakes. It's not indicated in the program to use frozen berries or bananas for said smoothies, but that's just something that I would recommend to you because otherwise your smoothies are going to be room temperature and very watery. So even though the program doesn't explain that you should be using frozen fruits and berries and things, I recommend it highly because it gives your smoothies a better texture and it makes them cold. I mean, that's just good advice for life, really, not just this program. As I mentioned, I purchased this back in May and it took me quite a long time to get my shit together and finally do it this fall. And the fact of the matter is, even though I've got a lot of problems with it, I'm glad I did it, mainly because I proved to myself that I could stick to it. I had a lot of fear about not being able to finish or not being able to stick with it, which is why I kept delaying. And I was just like, no, that won't be a good time. I have to go to this event. No, that's not a good time. I'm going out of town for that. No, I have that wedding that weekend. I don't want to deal with that. The truth is there's never going to be a good time to do this program or any program like it. You just have to commit to it and you have to do it. There have been plenty of events and things where I would have loved to eat off of the menu at a restaurant or indulge in drinks or whatever with my friends, and I stuck to my guns and I did see the program through as best I could. I will say that I did not follow the program absolutely perfectly. I was pretty much 100% by the book until the weekend of week 4. The reason my streak of perfection came to an end was over the course of the weekend of week 4 going into week 5. I ran into an ex while I was on a date. So after that, I needed a drink. So I did have a drink on that occasion. And then also last week, week 5, I got sick. I got really, really sick. I got the flu. I almost never get sick, and I'm pretty much convinced that I got ill because of the low calories. When I did wake up with the flu, I felt like I had gotten into a fight and lost, like my entire body hurt. I had extreme fatigue, no energy, and I just really didn't have the strength to make any meals that day. So I barely got it together enough to make a protein shake, and I think I made one of the meals. I think I made the breakfast, which was eggs of some sort that day. But I do think that low calories with sustained high exercise, working out 5 days a week, was just too much, and my body was telling me, go fuck yourself. And then there was one other day, I think, where I missed a meal or two. I think I missed meals on maybe 2 or 3 days throughout the course of the challenge, which is really not good, especially since, as I said, these calories were already less than what I was supposed to be eating. And yeah, I had alcohol on a total of, I think, 3 occasions. So after that incident with running into the ex, there were 2 other occasions where I had alcohol. One of them was just this past Saturday night at a birthday party for my friend because I said, fuck it, I'm near the finish line, I'm gonna have a glass of wine. Even without doing this program perfectly, I still feel like I am happy with where I've gotten and with the fact that I actually completed it. And I don't necessarily think doing it perfectly is realistic anyway, because I'm trying to create sustainable habits here. I'm not trying to do this program perfectly and then just backslide and gain all the weight back because I was white knuckling it for 6 weeks. I feel great, my clothes fit, I'm very happy. I'm especially happy never to have to do this again. I think if I did need to do some sort of like slim down over the course of several weeks, I would find a new program or perhaps adapt this one to better suit my needs and, my setup. So while I'm glad I did it, I definitely don't think I would ever do it again, at least not the way it is written. Do I recommend it? I can't make that decision for you. As you heard, I had a lengthy list of things I did not like and that I think could be improved to make the program better. But I also am quite pleased with how I feel and how I'm looking right now, and I want to keep going. In fact, I'm actually giving Gauge Girl another chance, believe it or not, because they had a special maybe 2 weeks ago where it was buy one, get one free on a 30-day custom meal plan. So I went in on it with my friend and it ended up costing us $70 a piece for each of our plans. And I'm going to use that plan, which I just submitted my information today, so I should be getting that within 10 business days. I'm going to be using that plan, following that, to hopefully get me to my final goal where I'll be in maintenance mode finally. And you best believe on my intake paperwork, I told them no fucking cauliflower and no fucking beef jerky. Thank you so much. But that is it. I know this is a long video because I've had to re-roll my camera quite a few times, but I wanted to give a really thorough in-depth review, make sure that it had as much information as I can put in here, and hopefully help you guys out who are considering buying one of these programs. To reiterate, do not buy it directly from Gauge Girl. If you do decide to do so, get it from Groupon. Maybe wait until you can stack a Groupon coupon on top of that. And if you do decide to do it, I wish you the best of luck. It's going to require a lot of resolve and determination and tenacity, but you can do it. If I can do it, anybody can do it. That's going to do it for me today, but I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.
That's a nappy-headed hose there, I'm going to tell you that now.